All right, so does God exist? So over the next, if you come to the future sessions, the goal over the next, 8 to 10 sessions, depending on how many we go, because we haven't gone through this session yet, is one, the beginning of the universe, cosmological argument, right? That the universe had a beginning, therefore it had a cause, therefore there is a, what's the cause of that? And that's what we'll go through tonight. Then, subsequent sessions, next session we'll talk about the design of the universe, right? And the first two here are scientific, empirical evidence, empirical data that you can look up and research in yourself. Right? And then we'll talk about the design of life. Now we're talking about DNA and evolution and various things like that. And again, the goal is not to persuade you. I mean, it'd be nice for it to persuade you, but the goal is to give you evidence as understood, and then you come to the conclusion yourself. Right? Don't believe anything I'm telling you up here. Go do the research yourself. And then the moral law. Right? If you're familiar with C.S. Lewis, but the moral law, right? There can't be morality without God, and we'll kind of go through that evidence. You can't have morality without God. Those would be the four major pieces that we'll cover for proving that there is even a God. Right? I'm not talking whether it's the Christian God, the God of Islam, the God of whatever, right? Just that there is a God, and then later sessions after that will kind of show you why we think it's the Christian God, why we think it's the God of the Bible, and the evidence behind that. And nothing based on, well, because, I have faith. No, here's the evidence, and this is why we believe what we believe. So to kind of make sure we're on the same page of terminology, theistic view, pantheistic view, can all religions be true? Right? Can all religions be true? So sometimes I've gotten debates with friends where it's like, well, you can't, all religions are contradictory, they're all somewhat similar. Anyway, all world religions fall into three buckets. Right? All world religions. So you don't need to know every single religion, right? Have you studied all religions? No, you don't need to. All religions fall in one of three buckets. Either there's a theistic view. God made all. God made the universe. The painter made the painting. Van Gogh painted Starry Night. Right, so Van Gogh is the painter as God is the creator to the universe. And Van Gogh's attributes are within his painting. Right, so if you look at Van Gogh's paintings, you'll find his attributes within there. Just like you'll find attributes of God in our universe and in humans and in man. Right, so a theistic view is that God made the universe, but God is outside the creation, not part of the creation. Just like a painter creates a painting, he's not the painting itself. Three major religions fall into there. You have Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Those are theistic religions. Christianity is really almost like an extension of Judaism, right? You have the New Testament, the Old Testament, you get New Christianity, basically. So we're really looking at Christianity versus kind of Islam, but those three religions are theistic views. God made all, and God is outside of the creation. Pantheism. Pantheism says God is all. God is the painting. Right? That the painting somehow it created itself and it's God. There you're looking at Zen Buddhism, Hinduism, and New Age. And based on the evidence tonight, the evidence strongly points to what I believe and many believe, that there is a theistic God, not a pantheistic God. Right? And if you think logically, like the creation can't be the creator. Right? And what we'll show you tonight is that the universe came into being from nothing. Right? So the creation itself cannot be the creator, but pantheistic view is God is all, God is the creation. And then you have atheism, no God at all, or religious humanism, right? We are our gods and we are our own gods. All right, science versus God. Science versus God. I kind of want to talk a little bit about this short section because sometimes this comes up too in our arguments, and we have to at least understand a little bit about this. So what does science say about God? What does science say about God? Right? So if Dr. Frank Turek on his presentation I saw, he has this great example which I want to go through, right? The O.J. Simpson trial. Not everyone here remembers the O.J. Simpson trial, right? But popular football star murdered two people in his home and then went to trial and got off, got scot-free or found not guilty. But let's look at the evidence. O.J. Simpson's blood was found at the scene of the crime. There was a 1 in 170 million chance that it's not his blood. Evidence number 2. Golden and Brown and Simpson's blood were all found in the white Bronco that they were chasing down the highway, you remember, very slowly. Right, so evidence number 2. Evidence 3. The glove at the scene had blood from Goldman, Brown, and Simpson. And the matching glove was found at O.J. Simpson's house. Number 4, bloody footprints from a rare brand of shoe, right? A size 12, and they had only ever sold 199 in the U.S., and Simpson had one of them. Happened to have that pair of shoes. Right? And Nicole Brown's blood was found on Simpson's sock. A 1 in 21 billion chance it's not her blood. Right? So, question, right? Does science say O.J. Simpson is guilty or innocent? Okay? Yeah, he says guilty, right? So, science doesn't say anything. Science says nothing. This is science. Science is the data. Right? This is what I make clear. It's scientists who translate the data and say something. Science doesn't say anything at all. Science is the data. It's the evidence, right? And once you understand that, you realize that anytime you hear a scientist, they are translating or interpreting or adding their philosophical, logical conclusions based on the data, right? Based on the data. So what did scientists say about the O.J. Simpson trial? Right, 10 years later, NBC did a study, 2004, and they polled a bunch of people. 87% of whites said he was guilty. 29% of blacks said he was guilty. Why such a big difference in number? Right, because each of those ethnic divides had a different worldview and biases. Right, whites had one certain worldview and their interactions with law enforcement, and blacks had their worldview and their interactions with law enforcement. So they had biases they bring to the table, they have worldviews they bring to the table, and they're looking at the same data, and they're coming to two different conclusions. This is what goes on in the scientific world. This is what goes on when you deal with the atheist, scientific atheist, and the scientific believer, whatever it is. They're both looking at the same data, they're using their worldview and biases to come to a conclusion. All right, so your job is to look at the data and try to come to a conclusion without being biased, without applying your worldview. Right? But that's what scientists do. They translate. Science itself doesn't show anything. Right? So my goal is to show you the science, and you can come to your own conclusion. What's often funny is that Albert Einstein even says, it is often said that the man of science is a poor philosopher. That the man of science is poor at coming to the reasons why he's looking at the data. Right? Second question, can science disprove God? Can science disprove God? So Henry Ford created the Model T, right, the car. So science is a study of everything within the universe. It's a study of the universe. It's a study of cause and effect within the universe. Saying science can disprove God is like saying studying the Model T can disprove that Henry Ford ever existed. Right? No matter how much you study the Model T, you can never disprove that Henry Ford existed. You can, as you study, if anything, as you study the Model T more and you look at the car and how it runs, it'll just prove more that someone created this thing. But science can never disprove God because science is the study of the creation that God created. Right? And so if someone says to you, well, science disproves God, that's 100% not true, and it can't be done. Right? Dr. Frank Turek uses an example which I think is funny. It'd be like saying, given enough time in the universe, eventually I will give birth to my mother. Right? It's impossible, right? She created me. I can't ever give birth to the person that created me. All right, so now we're going to go into the cosmological evidence, the first major strong bullet for why we believe there is a God in the universe. So logical statement, right? Our deduction is everything that had a beginning had a cause. The universe had a beginning, therefore the universe had a cause. Right? That's our logical statement. Number two, we don't have to spend a lot of time on, because number two is easily proven. Science is built on causality. Basically, you wouldn't expect an elephant to appear in this room suddenly and start stampeding everywhere. Right? Because we know there had to be a cause to that. That's the effect. We know there had to be a cause. Someone had to get an elephant, rent it, bring it down, shove it in the room, right? And the things that led up to that. Even if an elephant did appear here, right, we would think that someone somehow just invented teleportation. Right? There was a cause and effect. Right? So that one's easily proven as true. Everything that had a beginning had a cause. Second one, the universe had a beginning. And that's what we'll show you tonight, is that we're showing the evidence why we think number two is true. So if our first two premises are correct, the universe had a beginning, had a cause, we know that to be true. Everything that had a beginning had a cause. And the second one, the universe had a beginning. If that is true, therefore the universe had a cause. Right? What was that cause? Even leading atheist scientist Stephen Hawking admits, almost everyone now believes the universe and time itself had a beginning at the Big Bang. Right? Stephen Hawking. I remember growing up when I was really small, like before, I think as some of this was coming out, as a small kid in I think maybe like second or third grade, I remember thinking, oh, this Big Bang's not true because God created the universe, right? There's no, the Big Bang and God created the universe. The Big Bang is just how God created the universe, right? It's what He used, the mechanism He used to create the universe. There's no contradiction of, well, how can there be a Big Bang if God put it into existence? Like, God created the Big Bang, right? That's how He did it. Stephen Hawking's colleague Alexander Velikin says, with the proof now in place, cosmologists can no longer hide. And both of these are atheists, right? Can no longer hide behind the possibility of a past eternal universe. Because that used to be the belief, that the universe just existed forever, right? We'll talk about that. There is now no escape. They have to face the problem of a cosmic beginning. Right? Two words he uses in here that I bolded, right? Proof. If a scientist uses the word proof, you know there's strong evidence. They wouldn't use that word unless there was a lot of really strong evidence for it. And then he says face the problem of a cosmic beginning. Why is that a problem? Because they don't want there to be a creator. Right? Now they got to figure out, well, how do we make a reasoning for why the Big Bang even happened? Now they got to go back to, how do we solve this problem? For them, it's a problem because they don't want there to be a God. So there's an acronym SURGE, right, that Dr. Frank Turk uses that will help us remember and go through the reasonings we believe the universe had a beginning. S stands for the second law of thermodynamics. Also known as the law of entropy. So law of entropy says things move from order to chaos. If you organize your closet on Sunday and you come back a week later, is it still organized? No, it's a mess, right? And maybe you have some stuff, some shirts folded, but things in the universe move from order to chaos. Your body suffers from this, right? Laws of entropy. You decay over time. Your cars decay over time. Everything in the universe decays over time. Right? Everything moves from order to chaos, and everything naturally falls apart. Right? And when scientists have realized that the universe is becoming less ordered over time, right? Becoming more chaotic, less ordered over time. So where did that order come from? If you go backwards, eventually it had to be ordered in order for it to start losing its order and moving into chaos. The universe has a finite amount of energy, finite amount of energy and heat, and there is still order and energy left in the universe, right? So the universe had a beginning. So this would be like if I had say you have a car, and you fill it up with gas, right? Or you have a car that's been running. You open the tank, you look at the gas tank, and you see it's half full, right? Well, that tells you that, well, it's half full. It must have been full at some point. It must have had a beginning. The car can't run infinitely long forever, because then the car would really never get to today. And when you open the tank, it would have died a long, long time ago. If the universe was infinitely old, the universe would have suffered a heat death a long, long time ago. Right? Second law of thermodynamics also says that heat moves from hot to cold. Right? When heat moves away, it moves to the cold area. It moves to cold. So the universe is infinitely, if it existed forever, infinitely, all the heat in the universe would eventually stabilize, and heat would be evenly spread out everywhere, and the universe would have died a heat death. And that's what scientists have discovered. And so the universe cannot be infinitely old, because the universe still shows energy left, still shows order left, meaning if you work backwards, right, had a beginning. And if you want to go deeper into these, right, I recommend the Cosmos, the Creator of the Cosmos book, and you can get more information there. The universe is expanding. The universe is expanding. So Einstein, general relativity, predicted the expanding universe. And what's interesting was that his general relativity, it showed that the universe had a beginning, and he didn't like that. It irritated him. And so what did he do? He added what we call the cosmological fudge factor. He did divide by 0 so he can make the universe exist forever and stable and never had a beginning. Because he didn't want to he thought it was very irritating that the universe had a beginning, so he added that into his formula. And then Edwin Hubble confirmed something called the red shift. Right? Confirm the universe was expanding. So if you look out into space, and this stuff is empirical data, you can get a telescope, you can find this stuff and figure this stuff out for yourself. If you look out into space, what they find is as things move away from us, it leaves behind a red shift. As things move closer, it leaves behind a blue shift. Right? I can't tell you why, but that's what, right? But as things move over, it leaves a red shift. And so Edwin Hubble discovered, right, hey, everything has a red shift, it's moving away from us, galaxies are moving away. And he invited Albert Einstein over and said, hey, take a look at this. When Einstein saw that the universe is expanding, right, And he then later claimed that he realized that the cosmological factor was the biggest mistake of his career, right? He had to go back and admit, right, and take out that fudge factor because the universe had a beginning. So then he says, now I want to find the mind of God, because it was like, the general relativity proven to the fifth decimal point shows that the universe had a beginning. And so if you work backwards, the universe is expanding. What's the logical conclusion from that? That means yesterday it was a little closer, last week it was a little bit closer, 1,000 years ago it was a little bit closer, and you've mathematically calculated all the way back, the whole universe collapses back in on itself on a single point, into nothingness. Not like to a golf ball into nothingness. Right? So you have the second law of thermodynamics, you have the expanding universe, and scientists have actually discovered that it's not only is it expanding, it's accelerating its expansion. So we're not expanding into space. Space itself is expanding, right? Space, time, and matter all are expanding. All came from a single point. So if you look at some of the atheist scientists, we have data that we look at that we can draw a conclusion. The universe had a beginning, and so you ask them what caused the beginning, and then you get what they call pop metaphysics. It's basically made-up answers that there's no scientific data behind, right? So there's I think Dr. Atkins says, well, before the Big Bang, there was particles of mathematical dust that just extracted and collapsed, and eventually hit it just right to create a Big Bang. There's no evidence for that. He's just making it up, right? Stephen Hawking even comes up with this imaginary timeline. There's no evidence for what they're using as a reason for the beginning of the universe. They're just coming up. They're looking at the data, saying yes, it had a beginning, and then they're making up things to figure out why, what caused the beginning. And note that nothing existed, right? The evidence shows that nothing existed. Nothing. No space, no time, no matter. And when you ask an atheist, well, nothing created nothing. And you ask, well, define nothing. Then they'll start saying, well, it was something, it was this, or it was that. Right? They all admit there had to be something that created the universe. So then, what's interesting is the general relativity, right? Einstein's general relativity predicted an expanding universe. And if the universe is expanding, came from a Big Bang, right? There's something called the radiation from the Big Bang, the radiation afterglow. It was predicted in 1948 that if the universe came from a Big Bang, if the Big Bang was real, they would have an afterglow. So what's an afterglow? Those of you that can remember old CRT monitors or old school tube type TVs, remember when you shut the TV off, it kind of like zipped to the middle and you have that leftover light kind of emitting from it, right? That's an afterglow. Another way I like to think about it is if you look into a bright light or you're looking at the sun, maybe if you're younger, when you close your eyelids, sometimes you see that shape left behind on the back of your eyelid, right? Some of you maybe have experienced that. That's like an afterglow. Like you see that shape and then it slowly dissipates and vanishes. That's what they're looking for. If the universe had a Big Bang, there'd be some type of afterglow effect that we could detect. So in 1965, right, Penzias and Wilson discovered a cosmic background radiation, right, the afterglow of light. They were actually using a radar at Bell Labs in New Jersey, and they started picking up this radiation. And they thought the satellite was broken, the radar was broken. So they went out and they had it cleaned. They got rid of all the birds and all the dirt, bird poop and the nest. And they thought something, the birds were causing this. They went back in. They did it again, and they still kept getting this radiation. And then they discovered they had just discovered the afterglow, right? That there is an afterglow that you can detect. And in order to so the next prediction was that there'd be minor heat differences between the afterglow. They couldn't study it well enough from the ground, so then that leads to the Great Galaxy Seeds. So NASA spent $200 million, sent up a satellite into space called the COBE. Right? So science predicted there'd be slight variations in the heat temperature, and the slight variations are what you would need in order for the galaxies to come together. For gravitational attraction to congregate the galaxies, you would need small differences of heat. Right? That was the prediction. So in 1989, they spent $200 million, sent up a satellite. 3 years later, in 92, the findings were announced by George Smoot. And he was quoted saying, it's like looking at the machining marks from the creation of the universe and the fingerprints of the maker. Stephen Hawking said, the most important discovery of the century, if not of all time. Right? So what did they discover? They discovered, right, here's an image of it, which to us, like, okay, it's a blue and yellow and red image, right? But if you look at the data, right, and scientists have looked at data, right, even atheists like Stephen Hawking, now what do we look at when we look into space? You're not looking at a point, you're not looking live today, you're looking at the past, right? Light takes a while to get to us, so the things we see are from the past, right? If you take this and turn it sideways, which I'll kind of show you an image here. So this is what they found, what they call in seeds of the galaxy, and you turn it sideways, what they're able to interpret through the data and through the heat variations and based on how the distances of it through the afterglow is you can literally see the formation of the universe from a single point, right? And it's kind of a slice from the NASA site, but this is what you're looking at the afterglow, so they're looking at it like this, but from the data they're able to extrapolate what the universe looked like and when it kind of looked, or how it looked like in past times. This was the final nail in the coffin. This was you can no longer say that the universe didn't have a beginning. This is why scientists now all agree that this universe had a beginning. Because all this evidence adding up shows that it all points to that Big Bang factor. Right? The universe came into existence, the afterglow was like that final thing kind of on the coffin. And I always thought this was a really awesome image because you can kind of see how matter and the universe kind of congealing and forming the various galaxies. All right, last one for the surge factor is Einstein's theory of general relativity. A lot of us heard this in school. It's still a theory because no one can actually get in a ship and go light speed and prove that they come back younger than their brother. But it's been proven to the 5th decimal place. And from this theory, the universe is expanding, the radiation afterglow, the galaxy seeds were all predicted before they were discovered. So the Einstein's theory of relativity, why it's important, it demands an absolute beginning for time, space, and matter. That's what the formulas are based on. That T equals 0. There was nothing before time, space, and matter. Time, space, and matter are codependent. Right? And this kind of blew my mind in my 20s, was realizing, because when you think of time as a not scientific type person, you just think time is forever. Forever past, forever forward. Right? But what general relativity shows that time had a beginning. That time is codependent on matter, codependent on space. They're codependent on each other. So if the universe had a beginning, right, time had a beginning. That means before time there was no time, right? And us as humans, it's hard to understand that because that's all we've ever known is time. Experiment in 1971 that was done, which always I find amazing, was anyone familiar with atomic clock? So an atomic clock looks at bouncing electrons to keep super accurate time in sync. Right? It's an atomic clock. 4 clocks to test Einstein's general relativity. 4 clocks were placed on commercial airlines. 2 of the clocks they flew eastward around the world. The other 2 clocks they flew westward around the world. And they were compared to the atomic clocks of Naval Observatory. Right? What they found was the clocks flying eastward lost 59 plus or minus 10 nanoseconds. Right? 59 plus or minus 10 nanoseconds. The clocks flying westward, right, gained 273 nanoseconds, plus or minus 7. Right? So, the clocks adjusted their time based on their gravitational pull. Right? The higher they got up, right, and the direction they were going affected time gaining and time losing. Right? Clocks at Boulder, there's an atomic clock at Boulder, Colorado. There's one in London, right? And they aren't an exact step because the one is at 5,400 feet above sea level, and one has 100 feet before sea level. So it shows that time is a physical property. Time is not just something in the ether like, oh, it's time. No, it's a physical property of our universe. Anyone recognize this globe picture? You'd have to be a really strong fan of this, but this is from Superman the movie, Christopher Reeve, that came out. Lois Lane dies in the car and he gets really upset and goes out into space and he spins the world backwards, right? He reverses time. So I always find it amazing, you fly eastward, you lost 59 nanoseconds. How fast can you go and would you rewind time or get younger? So you can reverse time, just very slowly, I guess. Right? But time is a physical property, and that really blew my mind when I was in my 20s. I found that to be really amazing. So we kind of went over 5 powerful scientific reasons that the universe had a beginning. Second law of thermodynamics, Right? This is the science that shows this. The universe is expanding, right? So in order to expand, it had to begin at a single point. Second law of thermodynamics, things wind down, so there had to be someone to wind up the universe for it to wind down. Radiation afterglow, right, proving that the universe with the galaxy seeds, right, had a beginning. They're able to detect the afterglow of the Big Bang. And then Einstein's theory of general relativity. Time, matter, and space are all co-dependent. You can't have one without the other, and it all comes down to a point of nothing. You started with nothingness. And so there's alternate theories. Now that science has realized, okay, there's something created the universe. What created the universe? So then you get other theories to try to debunk that there is a theistic view, to debunk that there is a God. And they've all been, holes have been shot in all the theories that come up so far. Oscillating rebound, or something also known as like the big bounces, that people say, oh, well, the universe expanded and then collapsed. Expanded and collapsed. And it's been doing that forever. Expanding and collapsed. That's why you see a Big Bang. Well, then science looked at the evidence and did a study, and they found that there's not even close to enough matter for the universe to collapse in on itself. You have to have so much matter in the universe for the gravitational pull for the universe to collapse back in on itself, and that's non-existent. It doesn't exist, not even close to existing. And again, as I said earlier, not only is the universe expanding, scientists have found that it's expanding even faster. If anything, it's accelerating. So if anything, even if there was like a extraction to collapse, maybe you see it slowing down and about to collapse, but that's not what they see. It's expanding and it's getting even faster. That kind of doesn't make sense. It doesn't fit. So these are other theories that it started smaller and then it got bigger and bigger. It expanded a small universe and a big universe, then a bigger universe and a small universe. And they come up with these theories, right? But the second one requires a beginning. Stephen Hawking creates this imaginary timeline, and then some people what they do is they question causality. They say. Atheists will say, well, if the universe had a cause, well then how come God doesn't have a cause? Or, how is he the uncaused first cause? The law of causality simply states everything that was made has a cause, right? God was never made. God was always in existence. Or if somebody made God, then whatever that is, that's God. Whatever the thing is, they have to be the uncaused first cause. That's what we're defining as God. Let's say tomorrow scientists have released a news announcement and say, we were wrong about the Big Bang, and the universe didn't, it wasn't started by a Big Bang, and all our math is wrong, and all the things are wrong, completely wrong. Right? There's an argument called the Kalam cosmological argument. It sounds a little crazy. An infinite number of days has no end. But today is the end of day of history, therefore there was not an infinite number of days before today. So I was trying to show you a chart to kind of explain that. So if the universe is infinitely old, didn't have a beginning, goes back in time forever and ever and ever, infinitely long. Right? And today is the last day of the timeline. Today is the end of that timeline. Right? We reached today. Right? If the universe was infinitely old, we would never get to today. Right? Don't know if that makes sense, right? If it goes back forever, you can never get to today. Right? Today would never come. The end of the universe would never come because it's infinitely old. Right? So it had to have a beginning. This is a simplified version of the argument, but something you can look into and research yourself. But the Big Bang has been, the nail has been put in the coffin. All the evidence shows, and it's been proven that the universe had a beginning, especially the galaxy seeds and the afterglow. Here's a video from NASA. It's just like 10 seconds long, but I wish there was a big explosion sound here. But here's what the Big Bang might have looked like. It'd be like a big boom, explosion or something. I guess there's no sound in space, so I guess it's accurate, right? So going back to our logical statement, everything had a beginning, had a cause, right? We know that one's true. So what I've shown you is evidence why we believe that the universe had a beginning, right? All scientists, atheistic scientists, they all believe the universe had a beginning. Therefore, the universe has a cause, right? What caused the universe? And that's the question, right, to answer. So what is the first cause based on? Based on the evidence, what is it? Well, it had to be timeless. Time didn't exist prior to the creation of the universe. So whatever created the universe had to be timeless. No time existed in that until the universe was created. It had to be spaceless. Right? Space came into existence at the same time time and matter came into existence. So whatever created the universe had to be spaceless, outside of our space-time. Has to be immaterial. right? It's not based on matter. It's an immaterial type being. It's again outside the universe, timeless, spaceless, immaterial. It had to be unimaginably powerful in order to create the universe the way we know it, right? In order to create that Big Bang and put everything into existence, it had to be unimaginably powerful. It had to be super intelligent in order to get it just right and to get the varying degrees of heat. Whatever it created, the universe had to be super intelligent in order to do it. And it had to be personal. And the reason why personal is because prior to the universe, what did you have? You had nothing. You had nothing forever. You had nothing, not using time, but there was just nothing. And then something had to make an intellectual choice to choose to create the universe. That makes it a personal being, personal, whatever that thing is. They had to make a choice, a personal choice to say, I'm going to create a universe. And I'm smart enough to be able to do it and powerful enough to be able to do it. And so it's personal. That is God. That is what we say is God. Happens to line up with the God of the Bible very easily, but that's what whatever that cause is would have to be timeless, spaceless, immaterial, unimaginably powerful, super intelligent, and personal. And then this is the debate that scientists have nowadays. It's not whether the universe had a beginning. Well, the debate is look at the evidence and then try to come up with reasons why the universe came into being and try to do it without saying it was a God. Right? Atkins will use, it was mathematical dust that did it, right? And that doesn't make any sense. So Robert Jastrow is an agnostic physicist, astronomer, NASA scientist. He says, astronomical evidence leads to a biblical view of the origin of the world. The essential element in the astronomical and biblical accounts of Genesis is the same. Right? So not even necessarily is believing in Christianity, just as the Bible is an ancient text written thousands and thousands of years ago, how it describes the creation of the universe, or what it says about the creation of the universe, is exactly what scientists is discovered. Right? Nobel Prize winners, Penzias says, the best data we have are exactly what I would have predicted had I had nothing to go on but the 5 books of Moses, the Psalms, and the Bible as a whole. Right? Robert Wilson, I can't think of a better theory of the universe to match Genesis. And then George Smoot, with a part of the Kobe findings. There is no doubt that a parallel exists between the Big Bang as an event and the Christian notion of creation from nothing. So coincidentally, right, that the Bible happens to just say exactly what scientists discovered nowadays in the 20th century, yet the Bible, and you think about Genesis, written, thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago. Some things that I found interesting, right, Turk had these in his slide, but now you look at, if you happen to think, well, the Bible is accurate on that, let's just look at some things in the Bible just to see, right, if it lines up with some science. So you'll find everywhere before time began, right? Corinthians, God designed from our glory before time, destined before our glory before time began. Grace was given to us in Christ Jesus before the beginning of time, right? Prior to discovery, sounds poetic. It sounds poetic, right? But no, it's not. It wasn't poetic. It's telling you the truth. Right? The hope of eternal life, which God promised before the beginning of time. We know that time came into existence. We know that a God being personal, timeless, all-powerful God created it, right? And you find verses kind of to back that up. Ones that I pulled out, which I found was interesting, right? That we know the universe is expanding. You happen to look in the Bible, you'll see the evidence for that everywhere. He alone stretches out the heavens. The Lord wraps himself in light as with a garment. He stretches out the heavens like a tent. He stretches out the heavens like a canopy, right? Spreads them out like a tent. My own hands stretch out the heavens. Right? Who stretches out the heavens? And now you're looking back, you're like, oh, that's because the universe is expanding. And again, written thousands and thousands of years ago. So it's very compelling evidence, what I believe, for an evidence of God. And this is just one point we're making out of 3 more why we believe there's a God. Right? So this is just one session. Next is design, then we talk about design of life and the moral law. Right? And you take all those together, and it's like, how can you not think that there's a God? Right? How can you not think there's a God? So a question would be, last question to leave you with is, if there is no God, why is there something instead of nothing? If there is no God, why is there something? Why is there a universe instead of it just being nothing? The universe had a beginning, we know it had a beginning, but there is no God. So then, what caused the universe to come into existence? Either no one created something out of nothing, or someone created something out of nothing. Those are the only 2 conclusions you can come to. If the universe had a beginning, scientists all know the universe had a beginning. We can show and prove that the universe had a beginning. So either no one created something out of nothing, or someone created something out of nothing. Which is more reasonable? Or which is the more reasonable? If you take all your biases and worldviews out of it, which is the more reasonable statement? And you kind of understand now, if you believe no one created something out of nothing, which atheists will tell you that nothing created nothing, or particles created something, right? Then, as the book title says, I do not have enough faith to be an atheist. It takes more faith to believe that no one created something than it does to believe that someone created something, especially with all the evidence there. And that's it, right? Here's an outline of future sessions that we'll talk about, or this side. Next, we'll talk about the design. And if you're interested in this type of information, I recommend Cross-Examine, Dr. Lane Craig, his videos, Ravi Zacharias. Yeah, maybe we'll have our own apologetic section. And that's it. Thank you very much. We'll now go to Q&A.